Hello and welcome to the Local Loop. I am your co-host, Dion DeGennaro.
I am your other co-host, Trevor Medema.
And today is actually a really special day because it's our first episode we are recording with a guest. Super excited for this one.
Yeah, me too.
And so we actually have Todd Lipa here. Todd, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Todd Lipa, the Executive Director of CARES in Farmington Hills, a local food pantry feeding every community that touches the borders of Farmington and Farmington Hills. And we're really proud to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've actually mentioned it in previous episodes, but we're very fortunate to be here on your campus recording these episodes. So first, I want to say thank you for, allowing
Absolutely.
us to use this space. We love it. Why don't you tell us a bit about this campus? And actually, my understanding is that you had a connection to this before you started CARES, correct?
We do, and I did. This campus goes back many, many, many years for me. This is where I was baptized. This is where I grew up. This was a church that I hung out in. This is a church that I played on the property here. We played on the ball field, and we were always here because it was just in our backyard pretty much. So this campus has a lot of meaning to me. And as I grew older and stayed involved with the community, this campus and this parish, which was St. Al's Servant Church, was a place that we could send families to when they were in hardship. And if they needed rent to some school clothes for their kids, whatever it might have been, we could send them over to see Father Jim and Sister Charlotte to get just whatever they needed. Sister Colette was here for a long time, 47 years we think it was, and Sister would open her door and help out. Father Jim Wright was here for many, many years, and anytime someone needed something, they just seemed to jump into action. So when we heard the church was closing, it was something that our community worried about. So we had to figure out what could we do. And we think we have the right campus at the right time.
Yeah, it sounds like that. I didn't realize that there was such a long history of giving on this campus, and it was not just a place of worship, but it was more of a community space and where people could go and get assistance if they needed to. So was that a big factor? That was a big factor then in deciding that you wanted to continue that legacy in the same spot.
Yeah, Deanna, it was really important to a number of us in this community as delivered newspapers for the Detroit News, almost every street in this area. I, at one time or another, had the opportunity to be a paper boy for the neighbors. And then my career with the Detroit News, when that came to an end in 95, I then accepted the position as the Director of Youth and Family Services for Farmington Hills. And we were blessed to be able to open up one of the largest after-school programs in the country. We had 5 to 6 after-school centers every day. Kids could walk in and just hang out. And all that time, I also was blessed to be a football coach at both the high school level and the middle school level for the last 20 years of my career. And that was where I really noticed so much need in the community. So many people in this community are willing to step up and help. And that was just a desire of ours not to let this pantry fade, but to raise it up and continue to build it and continue to be there for the service that St. Al's Servant Church established for many, many years.
Do you want?
Yeah, no, you brought up the football coaching, and so I think just to do it justice, because I feel like that has a lot of reason why the three of us are sitting here today. Sixth and seventh grade football coach, and then I ended up actually going to Country Day, 8th grade on, but then there was like this circle back around. I really think with Annette, who is my mom, and reaching out. I don't remember, how did you guys get reconnected? Do you remember?
Pretty much through the community.
Was it?
Yeah, we were doing youth program work. Your mom was starting to get really involved in the community. Way back, this is many years ago. You were still pretty young, and we found this similarity in knowing that the community that we loved, that we worked in, that we cared about, needed certain things. So just kept crossing paths, and each path we crossed, we knew the journey brought us back together to do the things that were important to raise our own community up. And then watching yourself grow up and watching your sister grow up, and then meeting so many young people in this community, and knowing that never having kids of my own, I took every one of the kids that ever came through the youth program, kids that I coached for 40 plus years. I think sometimes you're put in the right position at the right time, and sometimes that position goes a long time, many, many years. And not having kids myself gave me an opportunity to be an extra voice to kids, giving kids a chance to have a voice, and even more importantly, raising people up when we needed to raise them the most. And that bottom line is that doing all that and working with folks like yourself, Trevor, and your mom, and now getting to know Dion, one of the things that I think is really important is life could be really going good, but you could have a day that, hey, I just need somebody. So, all of us here at CARES want to be here for people when they need us most. And that doesn't always mean just to get food or come to one of our social programs or social services programs. It may just be a bad day, and you just got to have some place where you can go to feel that you can be lifted up.
Yeah, I'm very well said. Couldn't agree more, and I definitely felt that way as a middle school boy. But I got to put it out there too, because I feel like, what are we doing if we're not mentioning the story where I forgot my locker combo?
Oh, you did, yeah.
So my mom comes rolling in with the biggest bolt cutters you've ever seen.
They were about 3 foot long. Your mom tells the story all the time, and you weren't
every day.
You weren't
now we got to record it so it can stand the test.
You weren't
of
the
time.
first, and you weren't the last. As many middle school, young athletes do. Getting that combination, especially your first couple of weeks into it, can be really difficult. Some kids write it on their shoe. Other kids, they write it on their hand. They forget they sweat and it comes off. And, it isn't as bad as a kid that doesn't know right from left, and you got to mark R and L on the shoe. But it's, your mom, I called her and said, do you know the lock and the code to Trevor's lock? She said no. And then all of a sudden your mom comes out of nowhere with a 3 foot pair of bolt cutters.
She found the solution.
She found the solution, and she is. She's very solution driven. Yeah, she's quick. She's very solution driven. And all of a sudden we got this 3 foot set of bolt cutters that we knocked off the lock, opened it up, and life was good. And
problem solved.
So here's the really great part about that is, we then decided that every year from that point on, we would make sure that if they had their own lock, we got the code and put it into our coach's manual.
Yeah.
So we never had to do it again.
You don't have to call Annette up for the bolt cutters.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we kept those bolt cutters on just
she
in
donated
case.
them, didn't she?
She did donate them. Yeah, that was a great part of one of the great stories. But your family has been part of my family and part of my life for all these years, and I've been blessed to have it. So I take those every day I can.
It means a lot.
Thank you.
That's thanks for sharing that story, because I had not heard that story, despite it being, I guess, so well
known. Can't believe
it. Yeah. Can you share your journey from Youth and Family Services to then founding CARES then? So what was that transition like, and what was it like to try to start a nonprofit and get that ball rolling?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. Because it was never in my radar. It was never in my thinking that I would be doing what I'm doing today. But what happened is in 2014, after leading the youth program for, close to 20 years, we ran into this situation where all of a sudden the youth centers were flying. They were going great. 350 kids a day coming into one of the 5 or 6 centers that we had open Monday through Friday. And we were one of the largest youth programs in the country. And all of a sudden now we hear one little staple in our community was going to shut its doors, and that was St. Al. And when we heard that, our first concern as some civic leaders was that we would run into a situation where the 75 to 100 families that were receiving food from the pantry would be out of a place to get it. Even though back then it was the days of a box pantry, you had some choices by marking off a list. Someone went back and shopped for you, put it in a box. Well, you walked out with at least the food, right? And we just really got concerned as a civic organization, as a group of civic-minded people and leaders of our community. You know, the beauty of those years was we always had leadership that cared more about making sure people got what they needed. And then we took a chance, and we found that this church was closing, so we put an offer in for the church. That offer didn't get received by the Archdiocese until late 2016-17. And then when they took our offer and we were able to establish CARES, I had to start thinking about the next part of my walk in faith, my walk in the journey, and where was I going to go at that point. So we got the property, we received the chance to build this, and then from 2017 to 2020, I was part-time all the time. I'd come in here in the mornings, check it out, go run the youth program for the city. The city was kind enough to afford me the chance to be part of this because we were still doing what youth and family should have done.
I was going to ask, were you still working with the city and youth and family services at that point? So you were hustling, you were doing both.
We were doing both. And, the city and my tenure there was gracious enough to say, okay, this works into family services, right? And you're still doing the same thing. So I was able to, massage both of them into one existence and work with them. And then COVID hit in March of 20, and we were just getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary when the world shut down.
This is for Youth and Family Services.
Youth and Family Services. Thank you. That was a clarity there. And all of a sudden it was the city shut down, the world shut down, but what didn't shut down was CARES.
The need.
And it couldn't shut down because the need was there. Yeah. Families still needed to, get assistance. Families still needed to come through and be fed. So we kept it running. It changed a lot, but I also knew then.
Everything did, yeah.
Yeah. But I also knew then that I was being called to refocus my thinking and where I was going to take my journey at that point to. So I decided over COVID and going through a few other things that it was time for me to retire from the city, which I did about a year and a half later, and come full time to build this operation here, build this focus of our Campus of Hope, and see where this journey would take me and all the other folks that have walked with me as we put our footprint on this campus. And we really feel that every time a footprint is put on this campus, it changes the focus of what we're trying to do in a very positive way. Everybody leaves this campus with a positive attitude, and it shows in all the things that are happening. So my transition from leaving a job that I loved working with kids to a job where I work with everything from a brand newborn to the last days has been a transition that I wouldn't change if I could.
So you mentioned that when St. Al's was a box pantry, let's talk about what has it turned into now? More importantly, where did you start off when CARES was founded? And then where have you guys found yourself at now?
Great question again, Trevor. And when we took over as CARES, it had been established, as I said. A box pantry was something that I remember my dad getting a box of food from St. Al's when I was a young person. And it was the same sense of box pantry. So you'd come in, you'd fill out a form of what you might like to have. Someone takes a sheet back into the warehouse. They would walk with a box, literally, and fill that box up. And sometimes you walked out of here with your allotted amount of food, but you get home and you find out that there's something in your box that I can't eat that because nutritionally I can't have it. Health-wise, I shouldn't have that. Or just because someone is struggling doesn't mean I'm going to like, a certain food. And I'll use corn, for example. If someone can't have corn because they can't digest it, but you just gave them 3 cans of corn, there's waste, right?
Yep.
Plus, I knew, talking to folks like Annette and others, that dignity is something that is so important to me. Respect for someone's dignity, someone's honor. And I never liked the idea of a box. To a young kid who had to carry a box out of here after church, I always tried to sneak so that no one could see it. As I heard Annette and others tell stories about getting food and having come to a pantry and use it, and that was many people that I walked across and got their stories, I hated the idea of a box pantry. In some cases, like a drive-through, you got to have it. Like during COVID, we had to put food in a box. Everybody got the same, and we knew we were wasting some food, but at least they got something. But when we started to really have a conversation about going from a box pantry to a self-serve pantry, as there are around the state of Michigan, but a lot of them are
be a question. Yeah.
A lot of them are definitely still box pantries. So what I love the most, and what our team loves the most, is that as an individual comes in and does an intake, and they come through our system, which is part of the Gleaners in the state of Michigan, then they turn around, they get an appointment to shop. They literally walk in the door, they look at a grocery store, because Doug Bush and his family and some others helped us to create these. I walk in with my grocery cart, I've done my check-in, and now I walk up and down the 4 or 5 aisles that we have. I walk by the produce, I walk by the freezer, I walk by the refrigerator. But I, as the guest, I get to choose what goes in that basket for my family.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge. And, it's like any one of the 3 of us sitting here, or anyone watching this show, if you walked into your favorite grocery store and someone said, just sit there, give me an idea what you want, they come back with a box and gave you no chance to have your opportunity to buy, how much dignity and how proud would you be?
Yeah, none.
None, right?
Yeah.
So the bigger part to this is, one, we save probably 20 to 25% by having a choice pantry.
Wow.
Because people take what they want. So who's going to put stuff in their cart they don't want? That's wasteful for them, and they don't need it. We also know that when they're done shopping, they can walk out of here with pride, especially when I see, and having a background in so many young people's lives, when I walk in with mom and dad or my grandparent and someone who was raised by a grandparent, I look at it and I think, I just got to shop with my kids. I walk up to a checkout counter. It looks just like anywhere else. There's a point of sales machine that checks me out. I don't have to give a credit card or any kind of device at the end. But my child sees the same exact thing if they walked into any local grocery store. They see the same thing at CARES. Wow. So when they walk out with dignity, with respect for themselves. And I constantly say this to people. I have an office that has a big window in it, and I look out at our main parking lot. And I see people walking out of their car, and some days you can just see the heaviness of life itself on their shoulders. And then you watch the same exact person come back from after shopping, where they have just been given a hello, how are you doing, how's your family? They shop, they check out, and they get the same exact responses. Can't wait to see you next month. Come on back. We're going to look forward to being here. They walk out the same door they walked in. They go to the same car that they traveled to get there. And you see them just a little bit lighter, heads a little bit up with a smile on their face. And I know one of the things that you and we talked about too was, what is a moment that you just love? And what I love is looking out my window, seeing someone feel good about what just happened to them, even though their food may only last them 5 to 7 days. But then if I'm outside, they walk by and they say, they'll say, thank you for having CARES. Thank you for giving us this place. There's nothing greater, because it's a simple little, I just shopped. But to that person who might have gotten a box somewhere else, or to that person who's just struggling day to day, week to week, month to month.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
To have one little episode of respect, dignity, and honor. And I don't care what car they pull up in. I don't care what they dress like. We know some people come here because it's a day out for them, just to shop for their food. And it's not my job, my team's job, anyone's job to judge people coming into CARES. We do our intake, we do our due diligence. We know that the people coming to CARES qualify for what they need. They've asked us for food, and I think anybody who walks into a pantry and asks for food should get it. And if they're in our local service area. We can't service everybody, but we also give out information.
Yeah.
But, the greatest part about all of that is seeing someone feel they got lifted up with respect and dignity. And that's important.
Yeah, I think you talked about, the kids' perspective and what they see and feel when they're going to the food pantry, and to them it's just another grocery store. And to the listeners and viewers, if you haven't checked it out, definitely come for a tour. You guys do tours?
We do. Come for a tour. Come see what we're doing. This is an entire campus of hope. We are much more than just that food pantry. We have a market that everyone who's listening could come and shop at. It's a small grocery store. We were the first in Michigan to have it.
Let's talk about that market really quick, because that market is open to the public, right?
It's open to the public. So we're open Monday through Fridays. Monday and Fridays, we open at 10 and close at 4. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, we're open from 10 to 6. Anyone can shop in that market. It was a desire of ours to look at how we could service our own customers who needed maybe a little extra food that they couldn't get at the pantry. We also looked at how could we combine our neighborhood into the market. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs of the folks who live around us. And, it's not a grocery store of the size of like a Bush's or a Kroger's or an Aldi's or any of them, but it has about 800 to 900 products in it. And people can come over and get their quick little needs. And just today, the dad was walking by my window and I heard him say, hey, school's out, so we need to get some peanut butter and jelly and some bread. So ran into the store.
Corner store,
Ran into the store. I see him walking back across the parking lot. And it was just fun because I've seen that family come into our market quite a bit. But, that's what we're here for. And the other big piece of ours was, there's a thing called a SNAP card or a bridge card or EBT, whatever you want to call it these days. And we know we have a certain percentage of our guests who have those cards. So if they can stop in here and use their bridge card to get a little extra food, how lucky are we?
Yeah. When I first toured the space with you, I kind of compared it to almost like a bodega, like a neighborhood bodega where it has all your essentials. And if the listeners and viewers haven't been to this campus, it is situated right in the middle of a neighborhood. There is houses on all sides. And if I lived on this side of town, I'm on the other side of town. But if I lived on this side of town, I absolutely would be stopping in and picking up the essentials on a weekday night, like on my way home from work, because it gets perfect for something like that.
It really is. And if you need a dozen eggs or a gallon of milk or a box of cereal and whatever that might be, you can pick it up here. And the other part that our team loves so much is during the school year, and they've really designed it now to consider the young person walking in. The kids get off the bus before sometimes they go home. They run across the street and they'll pick up a snack. They'll pick up a sandwich.
Pick up some candy before heading home.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of that, but they pick up like a bag of chips, or they might pick up a pizza that they can warm up in the microwave, or a sandwich, or just as every kid in the world would like to have, you open up the ice cream thing and take an ice cream. So it works out pretty well.
That's awesome. That's perfect. To kind of touch on that too. So you guys have the market, and you've mentioned it a couple of times. We call it the Campus of Hope. So this is a fairly large property, and there's a lot here and there. When you first took over this space, was that part of your vision to have this big campus full of different services? And was that something that was in your original vision, or was that something that has panned out over the course of finding out what the needs were?
A little bit of both,
Okay.
Dion. It was walking on this 10.5 acres, knowing this property so well. I knew it had to be more than just a food pantry. That was one service we could offer, right? But then we started looking at it, and I started envisioning different buildings on the property, and there's been a number of iterations to that. We looked at what kind of buildings would service our community the best. And then we also looked at, if we don't need to do buildings, what's the next piece? So yes, we established the food pantry. It's going great. We established the market. That was part of our goal, to have the grocery store. We then had a group of kids from a program, which is going to come up here in end of June, called Youth United. And they found the area that used to be the original little flower garden, and they decided they wanted to draw up and build what they called the reflection garden. So we were lucky enough to find an architect, a landscaper, and a lot of others, which if I had to name everybody, it'd be crazy.
It'd be a 45-minute addition to the episode, yeah.
But that part of an acre and a half almost, or maybe even, at least an acre and a half, if not more, has become the reflection garden. And that has totally been, I would say, 95% donated.
Wow.
That reflection garden is one part of what this campus is. That reflection garden will focus on giving people a place to come to, a destination, to have a concert, a wedding, whatever it might be. And those resources that come in from that will help us to establish our own constant income. We have a ball.
Yeah, you got to make this thing sustainable.
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable.
That's always the end goal.
Yeah, the bottom line is we got to find some funds. We then have 7.5 open acres, which has a ball field on it. Our goal is to find a donor that has the wherewithal to give us enough to put a walking track in, maybe a little bit of exercise equipment. We'd love to have a small playground for anyone, but also autistic kids. There's these beautiful playgrounds now designed around that perspective. And because it's the whole person, right? We knew that one day we wanted to have AA programs. We knew we wanted to have resources available to do whatever we could to lift a person up. Well, we also think, not only is it nice to be able to sit on a bench and reflect and be with a friend and just talk, but we also think it's going to be really important that you cross over our bridge, which to me, the bridge is everything on this property, because when you walk from one side of a bridge to the other side, you have hope, right? And we want to have hope that someone walks across the bridge and walks on our half a mile or so walking track with either somebody they can talk to, a counselor that we may be able to have here on the property, but just another piece of what we're doing. So we're looking at the whole person these days. And we did that with a dream in 2017 when we bought the property, but we're seeing the reality of all of that coming to fruition today. And we are just so excited because we're probably 2 months away from the garden being completed, and we still are looking for a major donor to say, I'm going to put my name on that property right there on that garden. And that's a big ask out there, probably a $500,000 plus ask. Even though it's been donated, we need to make sure we can maintain it.
Of course, yeah.
Then we have the $300,000 for the walking path that we're roughly estimating that needs to be done. And the constant reminder to everybody listening to the show is those are great things to give people a better resource on this campus of hope. But we still have to maintain the property, and we still have to put the food on the shelves every day. And that has become a big cost. And in these times right now, that's been harder and harder.
Yeah.
But we have enough confidence, we have enough faith, we have enough belief that this project can happen. We just need to have listeners out there listening to this, believe in what we're doing, and understand that suburban hunger, suburban need is truly out there. Mm-hmm. Just because you live in a zip code like Farmington, Livonia, Southfield, Novi, Northfield, West Bloomfield, it's still a need, and we need to fill that need, and we need to fill it not only to the guests that we're serving, but to the ones who are sitting out there listening to this that say, I need to fill a need too, and that's to help the campus a hope.
Yeah.
To give listeners and viewers an idea of the need, like pre-COVID, we have that you guys were serving around 400 families. It shot up to around 1,200 families during COVID, and now it's stabilized around how many?
We're seeing about 800, give or take a couple, each and every month. And part of the COVID number being so high was we were doing a drive-through pantry at the time with our partners Gleaner. And we are also out of our back parking lot on our Circle Drive, we were serving our 400 families with food that they needed in a box. So they pull in because of COVID, they'd open up their trunk and they would get it, but everybody got the same. And
800 families is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so we think about when we opened up in 22 with our now self-serve pantry, grocery store as we call it. Then you look at 400, maybe give or take families to just now in 2025, we're now serving 800 plus, give or take.
Do you feel like that's like, is the need growing, or do you just think more people are finding out about the pantry?
Both.
Yeah.
We know that CARES is starting to be a better known name. We know people are understanding that we have something unique here and something that is really trying to lift people up. But we also know that not only is that changing, but the need is changing too. We know that some seniors are struggling a little bit more. We know that some seniors have lost a loved one, and that struggle becomes different than it was the day before. We know that there's some families out there that are in and out of work. And so sometimes a family might be out of work and they come here for a month, 2, 3, 4 months. They go back to work. We know there's seasonal work that happens in this state, and those folks sometimes go season to season. But we also know that there's families just struggling. And struggle becomes part of that because you live in a zip code where the expenses could be a little bit more. So our goal is to make sure that if you can use us and you live in one of the zip codes that we service, is that we can help you for at least a few days with the food that we can provide. And then, as families start to use us, they also start to tell their other friends. That's the greatest form of advertisement. But we have these conversations every once in a while. When will we be at capacity? I don't know that answer. I don't want to know that answer.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to know that we can serve people if they need us.
I definitely want to get into, because there's so many more services that we haven't even touched on that go on here. Let's start with Colette's Place here.
Colette's Place was a former convent. It had 6 bedrooms in it. It had a kitchen, a whole living space for the nuns who lived here. Has a lower level, which was all the catechism classrooms and education classrooms. So this building that we're sitting in right now today houses our own outreach department. It has our own philanthropic outreach in it with a couple of our staff who either volunteer or work here to help us to reach people who need help, and folks who can help us in raising the dollars. WIC is here every Friday, and they service between 175 to 200 moms a month.
Wow.
So these are moms who have little ones from 0 to 5, and they come in and out of this door every Friday to get the support that a program that's run by the state of Michigan. Here we have 6 nights a week now. We either have an AA program going in this building. We have an Ar-Anon program going in this building that helps folks recovering from and families recovering from drug addiction. We also have Rebuilding Together that is on our property. They have an office space here to help families when they need that support. And, most importantly, we have things like, 12-step recovery programs that a couple nights a week are run here by one of our volunteers. And, then we were lucky enough to have a space that we have Mitchell-Logic on site. And
yeah, we do.
We sure do. And, a year ago, I didn't even know these two guys, Dylan and Ryan. But Mitchell-Logic was introduced to us by our pantry and market director. And when she brought these guys to us, it changed our focus. So they have the ability to have a studio in here now. They do a lot of the work in helping us to grow our social media piece. They do a lot of videos for us. And each month when they send me their information, it just blows me away of how much they're doing to get the word out about CARES. So this building, as we sit in it today, is helping somewhere between 600, 700, 800 individuals each and every month.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And some of those are duplicate numbers.
Of course, but still.
But, if I'm getting help here, I've met people who said that they've been coming here for AA programs for 45 years. They've been going to an AA program somewhere, but they love coming here because they feel so comfortable here. And I've heard new people that have been here for a meeting because they've been ordered by the courts, So it's a building and a part of the campus, I hope, and that's where we want to improve even this building so that the campus can help more people.
You, there's so much going on.
I know.
And you still have plans for more.
Yeah.
We do.
Do you want to talk about you kind of mentioned the walking path and the outdoor space, but is there more beyond that too?
Yeah, it's we want to hit that whole entire human spectrum, right? So we have been looking for a grant and reaching out to everyone that could help us. We want to have 2 or 3 social workers on this campus, possibly in this building, on 2 or 3 days a week and maybe a couple nights that could, walk someone right through and guide them from getting a bridge card to health questions that they might have. We have some services that can help people with how to make sure they have the best health coverage they can. We know that there's individuals not only in our own program as guests of ours who struggle when they have to fill out forms that the state has and they don't know how to do that. So we have folks on board that are volunteering, but we want to go the next step and have them on campus all the time. We need a space to we have 6 vehicles. We need a space to house those. And so we have an area where our architect has designed that we could have a great garage. And at the back of that, believe it or not, back of that garage, which is big enough, would have 4 or 5 offices to do intake and do social services work. We've got the garden going now. The reflection garden is well on its way. We've had the opportunity there to have concerts and all the other stuff that we talked about. We do have the 7.5 open acres that we want to make that a peaceful green park where people can just enjoy it or play a game of ball on our baseball field. And then constantly looking at what is the next need and what can this 10.5 acres that we've been blessed to receive step up to the plate and help with, and
I thought I read that you were thinking about doing stuff even like a gym at some point and maybe a health clinic if everything panned out the way that you want it to. Like there's some pretty lofty goals and you definitely have the space to do it.
We do and we did. And when I say we did, you're focusing the first going on now 8 years of being here. where they've changed and the focus of the community and the needs of the community being met by others. And I'm not someone who believes in duplication of services if we don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need to be inefficient. So the best is to be efficient in what you're doing and making sure that you can do what you do best and let others do what they do even better. So in seeing that the area around us has received the opportunity to have more walk-in clinics and things like that and helping people who are struggling, we're not sure any longer if a clinic is needed. So that gives us an acre open of land, right? And we're not sure that some of the other things that we focused on earlier, like a gym, do we need to compete with others to have the gym? So we don't really think we do. So we're looking at letting others do what they do best, and hopefully we're able to give services that people are telling us they need the most.
Yeah.
So some of those are great savings, but one of the big projects that we really believe this area needs, and it comes out of the focus of our small market, is if we could build a 6,000 to 7,000 square foot building attached to our current pantry. We think we'd love to expand our kitchen area just to be able to do a few more things. We'd love to build a store big enough to have more product on it. Partner with another group that we think could do an ice cream store and a sandwich shop, maybe.
That'd be cool.
And also give kids who are may have some challenges a chance to learn how to work in a grocery store, and then hopefully they can have a journey into a different market that's much, much bigger.
Yeah.
And we have more product to serve our community. So we have a plan for that. We know where it's going to sit. That'd be our number one space right now, because the second part of that, if we can move the grocery store out of where it's at today, we then open up the opportunity to have a place where we can sit 200 plus people in our room. So if there's a listener out there that believes in this area that is somewhat of a food desert in the southeast corner of Farmington Hills, and Southfield and Livonia, we'd love to talk to you about a partnership in building a grocery store that could meet the bigger need and be less of just a convenience store, but really be a market.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that at the end, because I want to ask you the question of, out of this whole conversation, two things have kind of came up, and it's we need more people and we need more funding. So how can people, if they're interested, find out, how to get involved, but just participate and kind of giving back to the community?
Well, great question. We have what we think right now is an incredible website, thanks to Mitchell-Logic and a couple others that are keeping us updated on our website. We think you can go to our website. You can find those answers right there. You can find a way to, either as an individual, as a corporation, as someone who just wants to be involved, you can go onto our website, go onto our volunteer page, and become a partner there. The other great part is we have a lot of our partners that come from corporations and small and large businesses, where they can come in for a day or 2 days throughout the year, or maybe they come once a month, like so many do. That's a big help to us. And we have partners who just volunteer twice a year, and they'll bring a big group of 40 or 50, but they do a bunch of cleanup to save us a lot of time and money. So that's a big help. And we're always looking for people who want to be a part of this family here at CARES, because there's never enough hands to really make it all work well, because there's enough need here to go around. And then when it comes to the philanthropy part of it and the giving part of it, we see in our volunteers, I've always wondered who's the biggest gainer. And we know when someone walks in, they get food, they walk out of here, that helps their family. I also watch our volunteers walk in here, and they help a family, and they provide a service. And I watch them walk out of here as happy as anybody. And that's where I said earlier, when people put their footprint into this property, you leave this property feeling very happy, feeling thrilled that you were able to work and be a part of it. And I think even as we've learned just this past week, we've had a couple folks come in that heard about CARES, walked in, They want to become part of the giving part of it. They want to make sure we have the funds to do what we need. We have a lot of great partners, but we're just scratching the surface. The funding just to run this operation, if we just did bare minimum, is $400,000+ a year. Our staffing levels are ridiculously low. Our staffing costs are unfortunately way too low for what we need. I have too many people working too many different hats and wearing those hats.
Really
and that's
common
a
issue. Yeah, common
hard
issue.
piece.
Yeah.
And there's some areas that we could just use expertise on. It's just like having folks being able to create our videos for us. That's a huge plus instead of us trying to do it. Increasing our website visibility, having someone to help us with that, having people doing diagnostics on just our intake every month. That's a huge help. So those dollars that come in could be instrumental in keeping us going. It also instrumental in us growing. But even at that point, every dollar that comes in, to give an example, if you do a food drive, which we love people who do food drives, and that food comes in, we ask that if you're doing a food drive out there, just try to make it food that's within date. Food that isn't, you don't take it out of your pantry and it's 7 years old.
Yeah.
That's a big help. But just to a listener who might not know, CARES has to pay about 80% of the food on our shelves we buy every month. About 20% of it comes from our philanthropic friends who do food drives, or like just this past week, one of our faith partners gave us almost 8,000 pounds of meat with hamburger and pork loin.
Wow.
So that'll go a long way for the summer, right?
Yeah.
But just as an example, as I said earlier, if you are a certain person who likes a certain vegetable and you buy that can, well, if you give us $1, you can go and buy 1 can at a local grocery store. But if we have that dollar, with our partners, we can turn around and buy 3 or 4 cans. So all of a sudden, 4 times as much, right?
Yeah.
So the dollars coming in go a lot further. The dollars that we get, we work very hard, and every one of our partners, if they can't afford to donate it, and they give it to us at cost, we want to make sure we can pay for that gift that we're giving from almost every one of our friends who have some obligation to take care of this property are giving it to us at a discount and making it happen for us. So I think that one of the things I'm most proud about, and one of the things I think our board would say they're most proud about, and one of the things our team is most proud about, is that we're very efficiently run, and we use every dollar that comes into CARES as wisely as we can. Sometimes we just don't know any better, but most of the time, as we go out to get a partner, get a friend, example is we've had a brand new refrigerator freezer put in. We've had a brand walk-in. We had a couple other big, huge units that were $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And donors have just brought it in and done it for us. So no cost to us.
What a blessing.
It is, Trevor. And even some of it, we get it, and then people make contributions to help us pay for it. This is a work, when I say it's a campus of hope, I have had so many opportunities in this world and in my life to be part of something bigger than what I could have ever imagined it. And every one of them has grown to be bigger than I thought. I look back at my coaching career, what a 40 years plus I had there. I look at when I had the opportunity to work with Special Olympics here in Farmington Hills, we built that, and it became a program still today is as big as you could ever want it to be, and people are getting help every single day. The youth program, it's still going on today. It's a big program, and it was big for a number of families in Farmington Hills. And now this opportunity is so different because this one has no age restriction. I'm not working with a defined population. We are open to everybody being a part of it. And when I truly think about this property and what we're doing here, not only do we want to build the biggest campus of hope for people and give people opportunities that maybe aren't existing out there, but we also want to make sure that we're doing what's right for our communities. And when I say put your footprint on this, I used to say all the time, just put your fingerprint on, because none of us sitting in this room, none of us listening to this show, none of us has the same fingerprint. Everybody's different. Mm-hmm. So when you leave this world, did you leave your thumbprint or your fingerprint somewhere important? But on this property, I think you got to leave your footprint, because it's 10.5 acres and people have to walk onto it. But once you walk onto this property, you're going to feel something totally different. And when you make that next move in your life to wherever that takes you, are you going to be proud of the things that they would say about the way you spent your life? You know, there's a poem I love. It's called The Dash. It has the day you were born and the day you're called home. Those are 2 dates. Most important thing is a story in the middle of those 2 dates. And I want to make sure when I leave this world that I have done everything I can to make it better. And I want to make sure that every person who walks onto this property feels there's something about it and they feel better tomorrow than when they walked in today.
That's amazing and huge. And I'm like, I don't even know how to respond and follow up to that, because it's so impactful. And I love throughout this interview, there's been a lot of talking about the walking and the bridge and how you're relating it to the footprint. And I love the imagery of that. And I can say from my own personal experience, like when I first stepped onto this property, I felt something different. And I'm not just saying that because you brought it up, but like honestly, when I first got here and I looked around, I was just like, wow, this place is really incredible. And they're doing stuff that is such a need. And it's also, it helps the people in need, like who use your services, but then also the people who volunteer and organize, and it gives other people purpose as well. And what I have found since coming here and learning more about the campus, and I've started to talk about people in my smaller circles, in my smaller, community of people, that I'm learning that a lot of people actually know about CARES that, had I not brought it up, I wouldn't have realized they even knew about it. And I'm also hearing a lot from my clients and my small business in the area that a lot of my clients know of CARES and think it is an amazing thing, and their kids volunteer because they went through Farmington schools and were familiar with the program, and so they spend time. And so I've been learning more and more about how much this place means to people in the community as well. And it is, I think, a testament to you to be honest, and the impact that you've had on your community. And so, thank you for all that you're doing, because I think that you and this place is having a really large impact.
Well, let me share a couple last things too, as I think we're getting ready to wrap up. There's some direction that I've learned in the last few months that the CARES has to go into. Some of the things I think that make this place so unique is we have a unique set of volunteers. They come from many, many walks of life, from major corporation CEOs to you name it, careers. And every one of them, I hope, feel that they have input here. I hope every one of them feel that whatever their skill set is, they can accomplish helping us by giving us that skill set. And that's been mostly volunteers who are retired or have a little bit of time because they're a little bit older and their kids are grown. What you guys have been helping me with, and as a big, huge goal of mine over the next 12 months, is to build the youth side of it. And young entrepreneurs like yourself, young business leaders like yourself, I am hoping that I can learn more than I could ever imagine because of your skill sets. You have a defined skill set that I don't understand, and a new perspective on how things can be produced and be done. So if someone's listening to this who's a young entrepreneur, someone who wants to be part of an advisory group, give one of these two guys a call. Reach out to me. We'll get you connected, because I think the next focus we have to have is young people giving us their skill set to take us to the next phase of what's going to be the most gorgeous campus I hope we can have. The other part of that is I never want to forget how business leaders can be a part of that focus. And, there's so many great things that can be accomplished by us working together. And one of the final goals that I have here, that somehow, some way, we never, just like the youth program, we built something that was different and unique. But as I would say, anybody who toured it or came in to see the youth program, every community deserves to have what they can put in their community. We service 8 communities. We don't want to do a lot of duplication, but what we have here is something that we can hope we can build. And because of the skill sets that we have on this property and the skill sets of our volunteers and the folks that are engaging into building this campus, as I did as a football coach and as I was taught by some of the best coaches in the land, you can have my playbook. I'll give you my playbook any day you want it. Because if you can go to your community and build anything to help people, it may not look like it does here in our 10.5 acres. You may not have 3 buildings, but do you really need that? What you just need is a desire, a passion, and a commitment to doing something that will be greater for the greater man and greater woman and greater person and greater child than you would have yourself. So I hope I can take my playbook that all of my team with Kitty and all of our other folks that have been a part of this, I hope we can create a playbook that if you need help and you want to do something, you can take it. Do we do everything correct? Absolutely not. Do we have the best of everything here? Absolutely not. But I've done enough falling and falling on my face to say, you don't have to stumble. We may have someone, and we have volunteers, if you don't have them, who might be able to support you in growing your pantry. I'm all about educating people right now on suburban hunger. I'm all about hoping that other areas will grow a pantry to service their folks. And if we can educate each other, I steal and borrow. We talked about the duck race a little bit.
Yeah, let's not to totally change the subject, but let's talk about that, because that's like honestly one of my favorite things in the city. Over the summer,
it's wild to experience for the first time. Honestly, every year,
I love it. I go every year so far.
But our conversation of all that young people, all of that focus, if someone else does a duck race, God bless you. Go do it.
Do it.
Do it, because maybe I'm not the sharpest guy in the tool shed either, but when I first started thinking about the duck race, I went to 3 different states, 7 different races, because one friend of mine out of Wales told me about this duck race, but he couldn't show it to me. So I went to all these different places back in 2002 and the summer of 2003, and I gained all this information. And I brought it back and I presented it to a group of folks and said, I want to do a duck race. They all thought I was crazy, and I thought I was nuts.
And it is crazy.
It is crazy.
But in 2004, with the support of our community, the support of my staff and Kitty and all the folks that worked at the youth program, we dropped 6,000 or 7,000 ducks into a river at Shiawassee Park, and we raised almost $75,000 for an after-school youth program so we could do extra things. And then it just grew and grew, and then the foundation we worked with wanted to support other groups, so we stepped back and they took it over, and then it went dormant for 4 or 5 years, and then COVID hit, and I thought, no one's doing it. I have all these ducks. What am I sitting on these ducks for?
Got a room full of ducks back here just sitting.
So, in 2003, we launched we launched the first duck race. And last year was an incredible year. We brought in a 62-foot duck.
Dude, that duck was so big.
Which
that number doesn't do it justice. It's like
just under 7 stories.
Yeah, it's like a 7-story building.
We couldn't afford to do that every year, and we can't. Nor is it, it's something that we want to do every year. But we want to do the duck race every year. We think for Farmington and the communities around us, it's a great family event. Like you said, it was something you look forward to. We hope every family looks forward to watching us and with True Cut Tree Service and their ability to raise that big, huge net. Last year, it had 8,400 ducks in the net. They raised it up about 20 feet.
Do you lose any?
We don't.
Wow.
And it's really important that people know that we don't. We have a whole group of duck wardens, as we call them. The minute those ducks are released and they're down the river, you can't touch them until the horn blows. But every one of those ducks are picked up because we have a real understanding, and we've listened to the DNR, and we've listened to the river conservation folks. And we know that we don't want a rubber duck out in the waterways. So our team walks that river, walks into the banks, and they grab every duck and we put them back in. And they go off to sleep, and they go off to take a little rest. They hibernate. And then
It's a long hibernation.
Yeah, at about May, they come back out and they start getting ready. They're all working out right now to get back into the river, and we'll dump on August 6th of 2025. We'll drop as many as we can possibly sell. So there's sponsorships available to support the duck race. There's sponsorships available to have your business in the park if you want to, banners in the park. But for $5, you can buy a ticket, which that ticket corresponds to what the number is on the bottom of your duck. And those ducks will travel down the river. They'll get into a chute that we've had made, and Ypsilanti helped us to do that.
I used to go to the one in Depot Town.
Before
we had one in my hometown, we used to go to that one.
Well, they were the ones that gave us the chute, that's where we trapped the ducks in. And the first one in wins a prize of $100 a week from Bush's grocery store to go grocery shopping every week for a year. You get 52 gift cards all at one time, and then 15 other prizes ranging from $500 down to about $250.
Wow!
And
that's awesome.
More than even the prize, it's just a fun day. This year
we're going to spectacle. It's such a spectacle.
This year we're going to have a science area there for the kids to work with the scientists. We're going to have a petting zoo where you've got fire department coming in.
Wow.
We've got, local restaurants who also can cater. They're coming down to put food out. We try to stay away from those that just roll in town and go out of town. We've got our local restaurants, our local vendors.
That's awesome.
Are putting food in the park for our families. And I hope when Frank Bankowski and his team have to raise the net this year that we can put at least the same amount of ducks we did last year, if not more.
Probably more.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this,
awesome.
August 6th is the day of the duck race. Buy your tickets early because we will sell out. We only have so many ducks to sell. But most importantly, it's a family event. There's nothing wrong with adult events, but this is a family event. And I loved one of our friends a couple of years ago. He's just 80 years old or so. And he was telling me that at the end of the race, he had his grandkids with him. He was jumping. His grandkids were jumping. They were all cheering. They were all cheering with the cheerleaders. They were all begging for these ducks to get in the chute. And he goes, when it was all done, I don't even know why I was yelling for a duck. It's a little rubber duck going into a chute. He goes, but we were all so excited because they came down the river. Yeah. And I said, that's the beauty of, we could do it like everybody else does and just have a raffle and put them in a drum. It takes a lot of work. We need a lot of help. So if you're a young person that can get in the river and help us, we sure could use you as a warden that day. But it's just a good family event, and we're proud to be in Farmington with it. We're proud to use Farmington Park. We're really excited about the team at Farmington who helps us to get the river ready. So there's a lot of work that goes in from the team, the DPW at the City of Farmington, the support that Farmington gives us, the police department that Farmington Department of gives us. All of that makes it a successful event. So come out on the 6th. Get your tickets early, support Farmington, support CARES, and spend a day in the park. That's what everybody needs anyhow.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast, but more importantly, creating a local community space like you have here. And I know Dion and I both are so excited, being a part of it, but also just watching it grow. And to the listeners, thank you you for listening. And I think I speak for Dion. We hope that everyone's inspired after listening to this episode. And I know it's really weird. We have listeners from out of state, which is crazy. But if you're not local, go find time to give back to your community, because there is always a need. And if you don't think there is, it's just because you don't know about it. And if you don't have a place to donate your time, I know that Todd is more than willing to spend some time to talk to you about how to get more involved. So, Dion, do you have anything else to add? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
Well, so thank you. Like I said, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.